These Ipswich Town players are defying the odds.
Welcome back to TWTV, where you join me, Jim Cooper, outside the Gtech Stadium, Brentford, for another video verdict, where we're hoping to give you immediate, independent and hopefully compelling information about a Town game. And what a game we've witnessed, because we've just seen Brentford 4, Ipswich Town 3. And I'm joined by TWTD staff writers, Kallum, Brisset and Phil Ham. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Yes. Can I find positivity? First time you've been here, Phil?
First time I've been to the Gtech Community Stadium. Obviously been to Griffin Park on a number of occasions, but yes, it's a slightly different atmosphere, isn't it, than the other ground? But one of the better newer grounds, I'd say. Yeah,
and we've actually got a segment with Billy from the Beesotted web fanzine later on, where he's going to talk about the experience of moving to this stadium and life in the Premier League. But let's get into it. So Kallum, let's start with you. Could you give an overview of the game, and then we'll step through the team selection, please?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty topsy-turvy game. The headlines will be the 96th minute winner, but Town started so well. 2-0 up after 31 minutes, 2 goals going in after within 3 minutes of each other. That was after we survived the first minute or two, which Brentford have a habit of scoring early. And 2 really good goals as well, I thought. George Hurst at the forefront of both of them. Some good hold-up play from him before setting through Sammy Schmodix with a brilliant first-time finish. And then Hurst got his own goal, a goal of his own, a few minutes later. Brilliantly clipped finish over Mark Flecken, but then it wasn't too long after that it kind of then all started to unravel. 2 goals for Brentford within 2 or 3 minutes. Johan Visser getting the first and then forcing the own goal from the second. Might as well have been his goal, in my opinion. And it was 2-2 at the break, and then an early goal in the second half again, like at West Ham. The early goal in the second half cost us there, and it was from the penalty spot. There was issues with the VAR. It was originally given as a free kick against Harry Clark outside the box, overturned to a penalty. That was then scored, and then Harry Clark goes and gets himself sent off for a second yellow. And at that point, you're thinking the game's going to run away from Town, and that's kind of how the game played out. It was quite comfortable for Brentford. It felt like not a lot was going on, and the game was going to peter out. But then, kind of out of nothing, we showed a bit of our character and got back in it with Liam Delap, who didn't start the game. We'll come on to that in a moment. Getting his 5th of the season. A brilliantly flicked finish from Leif Davis's cross. And at that point, we're thinking, could be on for a decent point here. And then the sucker punch at the end with the late winner.
Yeah, we snatched defeat from the sort of jaws of a really commendable draw, didn't we? And of course, another talking point was Delap hitting the posts towards the end, which would have been, I think the away end, Adam, who'll be on the show later on, it was Ben Levy in the away end, I think, and I think if that had gone in, it would have been, I think people would have completely lost their minds. But let's quickly go through the team selection, please, and then we'll get Phil some updates on the injury and his view of the game as well, please.
Well, there's quite a lot to talk about from the team. There were 6 changes. There's been quite a lot of injury issues, etc., which Phil will go on about in a moment. Muric was in goal. It was Leif at left back as usual. Cameron Burgess was partnered by Dara O'Shea, with Wolfie dropping out and Harry Clark, who I mentioned a moment ago, own goal, giving away a penalty, sending off on his full Premier League debut. Not one that he'll want to remember, that's for sure. He came in at right back. Probably the biggest talking point, there was no Sam Morsey in midfield. How often we see him absent without a suspension is almost never. So it was Phillips was partnered by Cajuste, who's only just come back from a knee problem, I think, of his own. And then the whole front four was completely changed. George Hurst given a start up front, got his goal, got his assist on his full Premier League debut, so it was good stuff from him. and then Connor Chaplin in the 10. He was the captain. Sammy Schmodix and Chio Ogbeni both out wide as well, and Ogbeni came off with what looks like a pretty nasty problem on his own.
An interesting point about that, I think it was one that, when you see an Achilles go, it's bad. And in a way, if the Ipswich players had been looking back, they might have kicked the ball out and we wouldn't have got the goal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it came
we could have quite easily
have
stopped play. Okay, thanks for that. Let's go across to you, Phil. Give us an update of some of the detail of the injuries and then build on some of the points from Kallum around player performance, please.
Yeah, well, Morsey, I think it's very difficult to remember. We were talking earlier, weren't we, how many games he's actually missed.
Yeah.
Other than for suspension, and it's probably the first time he's had an injury since he's been at the club, I think, isn't it? Perhaps there was the only other game I think he's missed other than suspension was Fleetwood, wasn't it, a couple of years ago. So, hamstring injury. Someone before the game said to me that it was probably one that was only going to likely keep him out today. In his press conference, Kieran said that he's a doubt for next week, so it's obviously not a very serious injury, but he's probably touch and go for next week. It was injury picked up during the Everton game. Jack Taylor picked up a hamstring injury late in the week in training, and he's not going to be back before the international break, which obviously then rules him out of the Ireland games as well. So Ogbene, Hutchinson, he was ill overnight. He was down to play. So big blow, and Ogbene, yeah, I mean, I thought he did all right, really. I mean, he played his role in that goal, and it was in that goal, in the build up to the second goal, that he picked up the injury. As you say, the way he went to ground from where we were, it was clear that it was a serious injury, and the way that Kieran talks about it is, they think it's probably a torn Achilles, and which is several months. So a big blow for him and a big blow for Town, really. So,
and Phil, it's becoming quite an injury crisis now, isn't it? This is a lot of people in the sick room.
But the team that was you look at that team, and I think we were talking at one point how many of those players would probably have started a first 11. And we're probably talking 4 probably at most, something like that.
And that's what we were speaking to Brentford fans and saying it was quite a weakened team.
Yeah.
But in a way, we've had 2 poor performances in the last couple of weeks. I actually thought it was quite spirited. I thought that patched together team, if you want to call it that, I thought they really came with what we've talked about, a bit of desire, didn't they? They wanted it much, that they wanted it, and they were winning the duels as well.
Yeah, they played well. And Brentford obviously got this thing of starting games incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
Well, we actually were the team that started the game more quickly, and that early period we were doing really well, and I think they had one chance, didn't they? A little flicked header from a corner. They had nothing in that early period at all. Which I think was about the 19th minute, and I don't think any team had a chance up to us scoring our first goal, which I think was right on the half hour, just before the half hour. So
yeah, it was interesting that the Brentford fans, "We're going to score in a minute," is one of their songs that they do at the start, which is quite good. We've got Marcus Bent on later on, some really interesting points of view from him. He did feel a little bit that it was Brentford actually, it was a combination of us coming out of the blocks a little bit and Brentford actually not playing very well in the first half. What's your view on that? Was it more us or was it Brentford?
It's probably a bit of both, isn't it? I think, and the fact that we were doing well, but probably knocked them sideways a little bit, didn't it? It's 61 half a dozen other in these circumstances, and the goal. I mean, we got the first goal, and then we immediately got the second goal, and you thought, right, here we go. And I think the key moment, and someone asked Kieran this in the press conference, was the game's key moment. Sammy Schmodix not taking that second chance that he had at 2-0.
It was a good chance. Although I was pleased with we were getting goals, and I thought he looked sharp at times.
He did.
And let's pick out some player performances. I thought was Hurst a tactical change?
Yes, it was.
It was, and I thought it worked. I thought he was holding up the ball extremely well.
Kieran confirmed this. Kieran confirmed that it was a tactical change, and that he felt that Hurst was kind of best for the scenario, and that Liam Delap was obviously done very well, but he's only 21. Was 21, 20, and 21, and he he's not going to play every game at that age. So I thought George Hurst for his Premier League debut did terrifically. For a full Premier League debut, did terrifically well. Goal and assist. You can't ask for too much more than that. And if it had been 3-0, I suspect we'd be talking about our first win. But I mean, equally, you can't knock Sammy Schmodix too much, because the finish for the first goal was absolutely fantastic.
That's so true.
And it was him that kind of created that opportunity for himself for what would have been the third. So, and I think then I mean, really up to the point where they scored their first goal, you hadn't seen anything from Brentford. We were really. I thought it was probably our best period of the season. I think
McKenna he'd set up. He'd won the battle against Thomas Frank in a way, hadn't he? I think our shape was working well. And what was great, Kallum, if you go back to you to talk about some specific.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Kieran said in his press conference that when Brentford kind of start getting into that circumstance, they come at you in waves, and that was exactly how it was really. Once they'd got their dander up, they got that first goal, and then the second goal came almost immediately. And when you look at it, and he said this in his presser, that people were only like a yard out of space, out of position really for those goals. And he said the second one in particular was so close. It just shows how well they executed it.
I think waves is the right word, and I think Visser has got real pace. I hadn't realised he was that quick, and that caused the thing. Just to close out this segment. Kallum, let's talk about player performances. I thought, for me, the central midfield, it was much better than it's been of late.
Better.
And I like Kajusta. What do you think of the central midfield yourself?
Yeah, I thought, you touched on Calvin Phillips. There's been a lot of talk about him recently. I thought it was a better performance.
Yeah.
But I thought, out of the two midfielders, I thought Kajusta was the pick. I thought he was brought kind of what we kind of expected him when he came in, with a bit of height, bit of power. And he provided a bit of energy that I think we've lacked. Maybe Morsey and Phillips are perhaps too similar to each other.
It's a really good point, Kallum, because Kajusta just brings a little bit more pace than those two, and I maybe complimented Phillips a little bit better.
Possibly.
So it'll be interesting to see whether
bit
central
of drive.
two. Yeah, absolutely. Which is that desire we had today, and just a shame it went. Okay, so let's start.
And George Hurst for me was the pick of the whole 11. I thought he was particularly in that first half.
Would you say he's your man of the match?
Yeah.
George Hurst. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was great. We were talking about it during the game, weren't we? And, I think it was a terrific performance.
What I liked about, for me, Davis is at the level, isn't it? You can just see it, and it's great to see Hurst come in. And I think he looked at the level where in recent weeks some of our players maybe haven't been looking at Premier level, and I thought that was great to see.
I think other people as well. Connor Chaplin, I think today, the role that he played in the second goal, I think that he's. People have kind of said, "Oh, is he up to the level?" But really, he hasn't actually played very much, has he?
Yeah.
So,
you're right. He hit moments where he was. It was a number 10 role, wasn't it? He was linking. That's what we want from him. Okay, let's do one of our normal things where we're going to go to the forum and Homer's put up the 3 words. So let's see what we've got. Entertaining for neutrals, which is probably quite a good one, I think.
It's a shame we're not neutrals.
It's a shame we're not neutrals. Yes, bring on Leicester. Played hearts out, which I think is fair. He had a little bit more about us in terms of that energy that we talked about.
We showed character, and George Hurst spoke about that after the game. He was keen to point that out. Not only at 3-2 and getting back in the game with 10 men, the game's easy to get away from you at that point. But also knowing that there were 6 changes and so many people out, the lads that were on the pitch wanted to put in a performance, and some of those wouldn't have got the opportunity, and they would have wanted to show why they think that they should be in the side.
Well, I think that was it for me. So you saw the team sheet and you thought we're going to have a problem here, but actually it wasn't. We turned up. People, as you rightly say,
it almost counted in our favour.
It almost did, didn't it? They were players who wanted to show what they could do, and Townsend came on and was doing quite well to make it more solid on the left. Actually,
it needed it at that point.
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
Think
and the goal that came was a bit of a fluke. Really,
let's close out looking at that, and we'll go back to 3 words in a minute. For me, I think a lot of people might say it was a Muric error, but it was right in front of me. Unfortunately, I was in the Brentford end, which is always difficult when you have to sit there and surrounded by people singing Brentford songs. But he did get put off. He thought the header was coming in, so he did go slightly to one side, and then it went in. What was your view? Was it a Muric error, or could you see that he was offside? He was missighted?
I can see your point, but you can't not point fingers at the goalkeeper for that. It's clearly it needs to be dealt with. The cross is on target, and you've got to preempt that someone's going to get a flick on and then react, or if no one's going to get a flick on, you've got to get across and stop it going in the corner.
And he did get down. He was down there as well, if you know what I mean. It felt like he'd get a hand to it. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. It's funny, in the Premier League, when we first came up in 2000, there was a goal. David Beckham scored a goal very much like that, didn't he? In the 1-1 draw at Portman Road. I think it was. I think that the goalkeeper. It's one of those ones where a goalkeeper is trying to react to the header, as you say, and actually Cameron Burgess I think he probably should have headed it away because he left it for the goalkeeper. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen it well enough or enough times to decide whether it was a header that Burgess should definitely have made. But I think his expectation was that the keeper would get it, and the keeper's expectation.
It's one of those ones where it just gets caught in between, doesn't it?
Was
I don't think it was. My summary is, I don't think it was a howler, but I think Muric should have maybe done better.
Yeah, it's a mix-up, and again, we've had quite a number of mix-ups, and now is this part of the fact that we've got new players coming in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did think we did reduce the errors, but there were still a few there. And I have to say, for their first goal, I think Burns and Clark should have done better. I think it was who's their left winger with the double barrel name? Lewis Potter.
He was exceptional.
He had a great game. In fact, that was the Brentford fans I was with thinking he was maybe their man of the match.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time. Just to close out 3 words: hating the Prem. And in fact, Billy from Beesotted will talk about the Premier League in life for a fan for Brentford a bit later on in the show, and then absolutely gut wrenching. Which is frankly what I felt when that winner went in.
I think everyone did. George was speaking about how all the players were so deflated, and
McKenna's going to have to build them up for the Leicester game now.
It's a tough job.
It's when it goes against you like that. Looking around us, then let's move on to our survival rivals. Wolves have basically drawn 2-2 away at Brighton. They've come back from being behind, so they've got a point. Man City only beat Saints 1-0, which is quite a surprise. But again, Saints are not getting points. Palace are at home to Spurs tomorrow, and Everton are currently... Who are Everton playing? 1-0 down to Fulham. So we are remaining, remember the positives, are remaining outside the relegation zone. We're still 17th and only 4 points off Everton if that score remains the same. Okay, so let's close it out. Thanks so much, guys. Really good insights today, good views of the game. We go ahead to next week. It's going to be a hugely important game at Portman Road against Leicester. Hopefully we can take the positives from this game and the performance into that, and we look forward to another video verdict after that game. And thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Welcome back to TWTV outside the Gtech Brentford Stadium again, and we've bumped into Marcus Ben. Great to have you on the show, Marcus. How are you doing? What are you up to these days?
I'm good, thank you. I try to come down here every other week. They do a Legends, they've got a Legends spot for the players that did play for Brentford a number of years ago. I mean, it was my first club, so that's where I kind of learnt my trade. So I always try and come back and give thanks and stuff, see the fans and whatever it may be. But when the Ipswich game come up, and I knew they came up into the Premiership, I wanted to be at this game as well. But I've been speaking to Matt Holland, so I should be down to watch Ipswich.
We've had Alan Lee on the show recently, right. Adam Tanner as well. So great to get an ex-striker on. And can we get your view of the game from a striker's perspective? Sure. I think we took those chances well early, didn't we? Yeah. Schmodic's had a good chance. Yeah. What do you think happened with the game, basically? How did it ebb and flow?
I wouldn't say Ipswich came out the traps, and I'm not trying to put Ipswich down. I just don't think Brentford turned up in defence in a sense, but what they did do is take advantage of it. 2 great finishes, went up. I thought they might hold on to it, but with the goal coming in from Brentford, I think it kind of stirred the pot a little bit, stirred the fire. And then Brentford being at home as well. I mean, their record at the minute is really good. Yeah. And then to get the second one, at that point, I felt Ipswich didn't really have an answer. They went a little bit quiet. The confidence looked a little bit low. But then, as the game went on, they started to find a little bit more fire in the belly. Yeah. All right, Brentford went up and scored 3 goals, and it was 3-2. But they were still in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford had chances, didn't they? A superb block from Phillips, for example, to keep us out. Yeah. What do you think changed in that second half? Do you think we got a bit... They seemed to be having some joy on the wings, didn't they? Were our fullbacks struggling? What was that flip that happened that made Brentford more dangerous?
I mean, as you know, Brentford are an attacking side. Yeah. They're attacking side. People will question their defence, but they're an attacking side, especially at home as well. I think with the run of games that Ipswich have had, not winning as well, yes, you can be motivated in a different way to get 3 points, but when you've been losing that, your confidence starts to get a little dig, your self-belief starts to get a little dig. But they showed resource, they showed resistance in a sense where they came back again.
Yeah,
and could have got the equaliser as well. And do you know what? I would have held my hands up and said they deserved that.
Yeah.
Today for me, it was hard for me to support both sides because obviously both sides I've played for and they mean a lot to me. But it would have been nice for Ipswich to get a win, because they need it, and Brentford at the minute don't. I know that's not how football works, and I don't work like that as a footballer.
Yeah.
But they'll be okay if they keep going.
And just a final point is, you've been in a lot of games. How do the Ipswich players pick themselves up now? You know what I mean? Can they put this behind you? What was the tactic the manager will take and the players take? We're trying to put these, because we've had three losses now. Today was a good performance. The other two were not. How do you think they're going to work on getting ready for what is a massive game against Leicester?
I'll put it. The first game of the season I had with Ipswich, we lost to Liverpool 6-0. That season.
I sadly remember it.
Yeah, and it was hard getting in the changing rooms. I mean, we had the likes of Michael Owen, Emil Heskey, Fowler playing against us. So it was a good learning curve. I think what you've got to do is take away the positives and the negatives, because that's the only way you can grow. And you take each day as it comes. We play a good bit of football. We've played it in the leagues below, hence why we've come up into the Premiership. Problem being is the Premiership's a lot stronger physically, mentally, and quicker. So maybe change a few things around. I'm not trying to be a manager or tell the manager what to do, but I think at times where Brentford have got the goals today could have been cut out in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mistakes weren't quite the howlers we've had in recent weeks, but there's still areas to tighten. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us and giving some insights. And, as you say, hopefully we can take some positives into the next game. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Welcome back to TWTV, where you join me again outside the Gtech Brentford Stadium, and we're here to get an opposition view, and I'm joined by Billy Grant from the much loved Beesotted fanzine, up there with one of the favourite loved fanzines, a bit like TWTV, we like to think, and really want to get an opposition view. Let's start off with a little bit of a history of Beesotted, if that's okay. Tell us a little bit more about the fanzine, how's it long it's been going and how it started.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me on. As you probably know, we go back with you lot quite a while. Back to the Championship days. I remember sort of messaging you in our first year in the Championship days when we were very, very excited after coming up from Division 3, as I call it, like Championship days. We're like going, there's all these podcasts and there's all these fanzines here. Let's just talk to them and let's just get reviews from them and stuff like that. And you lot were really on point. Every year we used to write to you. You're so professional. You used to send us reviews. We used to chat to you. We used to have a laugh, and it sort of embedded us in sort of kind of the next level of football. Because for me, I've been watching Brentford since, basically in the third and the fourth tier for pretty much all my life. So that, when we went up to that tier in it was 2014. That was just new for me, because I've been watching Brentford for 30 odd years, in Division 3 and 4, so it's good. So talking about Beesotted, the fanzine has been going since 1990, in fact.
Wow,
it is.
quite
1990.
a while.
Dave Laney Lane, who's shot off back to the pub. He actually kind of founded it. I was actually running an unofficial travel club, which back in the days, if you remember, unofficial travel clubs weren't very popular with the club and with the police as well. So I had the unofficial travel club. We used to have about 150, 200 people that used to travel with us and various coaches. And Laney started off this fanzine, and then we sort of had a coming together with the travel club, as it was the official, unofficial, and the fanzine Beesotted came together, and I basically ended up writing for the fanzine with Laney, and we became part of the same crew, and we used to do lots of away days to really strange places like Falkirk, who signed a load of Brentford players. We kept on going up to Scotland to Falkirk.
Check on their performances.
Yeah, that's right. There's a video of us actually from 1992 of us going to Falkirk, because we were quite early in the days of doing video stuff, as you do.
And I know you've been on a few England away days as well. I think that's on YouTube if you look up that. So just moving on, what did you think? I mean, what a game. I mean, it was certainly eventful. What did you give your overview of the game, and also what's your view of Ipswich? We're new to the Premier League. How do you think we're going to fare?
Listen, as a Brentford fan, obviously I'm delighted with the result. As a Brentford fan, as a football fan, I'm going to be honest with you, I think we got away with it today. We do a post-match podcast, as you know, Beesotted Pride of West London, as well, Pride of West London as well. We've interviewed, Ipswich fans on there as well as Brentford fans. And the Brentford fans said, delighted with the result, but to be quite honest with you, we were pretty awful today. And Ipswich, we were quite impressed with them. The way they pressed us, they got their first 2 goals. When you got your first 2 goals, to be fair, you should have been putting the game to bed. But Brentford somehow came back into the game. To be fair, we are really good up front. We've got some great strikers, even with Tony gone, even with Thiago injured, even with Sharda coming on and not quite doing the right things. We're really good up front, but up back, hey, it's like Keystone Cops sometimes.
Well, I think, as you said, I think in that first half, it was probably a bit of a combination of you not being quiet at the races. Our press was spot on, wasn't it, basically?
Yeah.
And we had that Smodic chance to make it 3-0, and I wonder if that had just been enough distance to keep you away. But very impressed by you in the second half. Talk us a little bit more about the second half. What do you think was changed? Why do you think you got hold of the game so much?
Listen, you went 2-0 up. We got 2 goals back. For me, you're going to go into the dressing room and you're going to be disappointed, right? You're going to be really disappointed if that happened. Thomas Frank is going to, I'm not going to say that he's going to be getting the hairdryer out, but Thomas Frank was going to have a word. He's going, what's going on here? You've got 2 balls, 2 goals that have come straight through the middle, quite similar type goals as well, and they were very well taken, but they were, easy goals. Our defence was all over the place. What is going on? So 2 goals back, come back. We got the 3rd goal where we come back in there, and we've gone ahead. And to be quite honest with you, after that, we were kind of running the game. I know a lot of people were saying that they didn't think the penalty was a penalty. People that may be watching at home or going to see this afterwards, it was a penalty. I actually said it wasn't, because what's happened is that there was the first foul outside the box, but the referee played the play on, and then when he came inside the box again, he got fouled again, so he went down. So when it went down, everyone goes, it's a penalty, but he gave it outside the box. I thought because outside the box was the first foul, that's where he's going to give it, but everyone else around us was going, it's a penalty. So that's why the penalty has happened, and it was a fair penalty. Listen, and Bumo, great, he scores the penalty and that, but I think it was when you went down to 10 men and then we let you back into the game, that was the killer. And I know that Delap, I think he was injured, that's probably why he was on the bench.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he was on the bench. I mean, Hurst brings some attributes as well, if you know what I mean, but when he came on, he really started to make a difference.
Yeah, well, we were very happy when we saw he was on the bench, because we were, listen, I'm going to be honest, we're enjoying ourselves in this division. We're having a laugh. We're upsetting some of the bigger boys sometimes. Listen, we know we kind of almost like we've sussed this division out. You know that if you lose one game, we're not going to go, oh no, we've lost this game. Because we just put it behind you, and then the next week you can actually be really great. So you just never really know. So, but also the other thing is that you know that when teams come down, every single team that comes down, you have to watch yourself. We do, as Brentford, we do. And that's why, like, when we go to places like Manchester City and Manchester United, and if they've got that arrogance about them, you know you can always take them on, because at the end of the day, so if they drop their shoulders, you can actually get something out of it. So we knew you coming down. We, of course, would have liked to have got a point. You haven't won a game. But I met an Ipswich fan on the way to the game at bus stop, and he's going, you're going to do... I said, mate, it's absolutely... We are not taking anything for granted.
Your defence was giving us some opportunities, wasn't it? So let's just close out. Bring the Premier League... Summarise the Premier League experience for you, because we're a bit of a mixed bag. The Man City away day was kind of strange crowd that left early, and the atmosphere. What did you make of the Ipswich away end, and what are you making of the Premier League in general, would you say?
Your fans, and I keep saying to you, I like the Championship fans that come down, the fans from the lower leagues, because I think that they enjoy themselves, and you've got, you're not an Ipswich fan through glory hunting, you know what I'm saying? You're an Ipswich fan because you're an Ipswich fan, just like if you're a Preston fan or a Borough fan or any one of those fans at the moment now. So when they come here, they have a right good laugh, and we like that, and they go to the pubs and have a right good laugh. So listen, like I said, you come down here and really good for sport, really got behind your team, yes, behind, up front and all that, but you still got behind your team. The Premier League is really weird. We were lucky enough to win our very first game against Arsenal, so it kind of set us up really nicely, and after that it was kind of like, it was almost like after that we thought, if we lost every single game after that, that first game was just so brilliant here, under the lights, weren't expecting it, it was great. We've now in our 4th season, and what I'll say is that I went to every single game, home and away, first season. I obviously do the podcast. I do, blogging. I'm involved in Brentford, but you start finding people picking and choosing their games, because it's a very different experience. I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking the Premier League, because it is what it is, but I think the commercialisation, everything like that, takes it to a different level. So you've got different fans coming in supporting Man City and Man United and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of mentioned that when you went to Man City, about people leaving before the end.
And do you think an element of people maybe losing a little bit of interest is to do with the fact you go in that middle area with like the Palaces and the Fulhams, and it's kind of, there's, where are you going to be? You're not going to change the top, you might not get relegated. Is that part of the factor why people are kind of turning off a little bit, do you think?
I think, Palaces, I think, is a prime example of a team who literally for, I don't know, is it is it 10, 12, 14 years, literally finishes in the same position all the time. Now, some people go, careful what you ask for. Right, look at Charlton where they were up there and all of a sudden like they went, oh no, it's not good enough for us. Next minute they're down in the 3rd division.
Yeah.
Right, so you have to be careful about that. But for me, the football, you see some great football out there, some great teams come back now, but it's also about the vibe and the experience. So it's a balance up between all those things. So the fact is that mid-table thing, I think that yes, you do get I heard the Ipswich fans singing earlier, sort of football in a library, which is the song that you sing, and I think I understand that because we sing exactly the same thing. But when you're 4 seasons in, or 6 seasons in, or 8 seasons in, you will find that at your ground as well.
Yeah.
Where at the end of the day, it starts to become a little bit same old, because just because it is. And also the other thing is that what I found is that there seemed to be sort of kind of, probably because we were down in those divisions, much more kind of rivalries, local rivalries. Like you've got Ipswich and Norwich as well, but then afterwards you might have a bit of Colchester and a bit of this and a bit of Peterborough and all this kind of stuff going on. Whereas here, when Wolves come down, it's a bit like Wolves and the Man United. It's like and Man City. Fulham's the only one that comes down. We think, okay, there's a little bit of that. Whereas you kind of get a little bit more rivalry, and especially as you've got that thing where you could be 13th.
Yeah.
And you want to get to 6th, and it's only 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's
and
the difference.
the championship, the playoffs allow that kind of jeopardy to. Is it jeopardy?
Jeopardy is the word,
isn't it? Is there jeopardy?
100%. But not knocking this league.
Yeah.
I'm not, because you might think he's really miserable, he doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
I'm just explaining. I think the difference between
it's a
here
different
and
experience.
it's
basically.
a very, very different experience.
Well, listen, Billy, thank you so much for joining us, giving us your views of the game, but also some insights into the Premier League itself. Look forward to listening to your podcast on Beesotted, and thanks again for joining us.
Okay, like I said to you, Pride of West London, you'll check us out there as well. But also, I'll say to you, Ipswich, listen, you came down here and you gave us a fright of our lives here today. You're unlucky not to get at least a point out of this game today. Personally, I think you'll do all right this season. We've seen teams that have come down to this division, and to be honest with you, like, how the hell are they here? But we think if you keep setting yourselves up like that, you're going to picnic yourself a point, and it's about nicking a point here, nicking 3 points there, and we think that you're going to be all right this season.
I mean, I think, there's thanks. I really appreciate it at the end, but I mean, I think there's some positives to take today, and it's great that you wrapped it up at the end there. Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, wicked. Enjoy
We'll be back
yourself.
soon.
Safe journey back.
Cheers. Welcome back to TWTV, where you join me, Jim Cooper, outside the Gtech Brentford Stadium again, and we're just going to have a short segment looking at the experience of coming to Brentford, and also a bit of a discussion of stats of the game. And I'm joined by Adam, who's a regular blogger on TWTD and writes a kind of weekly preview of the game in terms of stats. Let's talk about stats that you'd picked up before the game and how they sort of played out today against Brentford, please.
So I think coming into this one, the biggest stats were around kind of defensive frailties. Brentford had faced the highest amount of shots on target and highest amount of shots in general of everyone in the Premier League, and Ipswich Town had conceded the most expected goals out of the entirety of the Premier League. So a 4-3 thriller was on the cards.
Yeah,
really.
kind of. It already played out in the stats, and it really was a thriller, wasn't it? Basically.
It was.
Right. Well, let's pause on the stats for a minute, and we'll just quickly talk about the ground. I have to say, been to a few away games this season in the Premier League. For me, that's probably the best ground I've been to in terms of atmosphere and just look and feel. Talk us through what you thought about the ground.
I think so. The away end was probably the best I've been in this season.
Yeah.
And I think because this is a new stadium for Brentford, it's their first season there, and I think it's a really good example of how to move to a new built, more high-tech stadium without losing too much of the atmosphere. You're still really close to the pitch. You still get a really good view, and it's the acoustics are really good as well. The amount of noise. I think the lowest away following we've had in terms of numbers, but the amount of noise was...
the noise was good, and it was good from the locals as well. Again, they've not moved far from the old ground. I actually went to the Globe, which is one of their classic pre-match pubs that they used to go to at Griffin Park, so they've kept some of that continuity as well. And you're right, I mean, what's the capacity? It's about 17,500, something like that.
I think we took 1.5.
Yeah,
like
so
that.
it was one of our smallest away allocations. Very hard to get a ticket. But I thought, it was a ground that felt like a football ground. The atmosphere held in, and what was interesting is they all stayed till the end. They all stay to the end. They all sing. They've got a number of anthems they play. So that was really impressive. So a good ground and probably a good away experience. Just a shame
about the result.
It was a shame about the result. And I keep going back to that Delap hitting the post at the end because it would have been the way in would have lost its mind. I think
after 3-3, it was insane. If
Yeah.
that had got in to make it 4-4, I don't think I'd have a voice left.
So just to close out, let's look at the stats of the game. So possession-wise, a bit surprising actually. 65% for them, 35% for us. It didn't feel like that at times.
It didn't feel like that. Maybe a lot of that was when we went down to 10 men.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Of course,
They had a bit
they
more
were
of the
holding
ball
the ball. 20 shots for them and 11 shots for us, so it shows that it was quite an attacking game. And also big chances. They had 7 big chances, we had 4. And I think that's one of the positives to take today. We did have a bit more of a cutting edge, didn't we?
Definitely.
I felt there was threat right until the end in some ways, as we saw. The XG, they were 3.94, we were 1.36. Just talk us through why you think that might be.
I think a penalty always has a high XG
Yeah.
percentage, obviously, given the quality of the chance that it is, so that's probably a lot of the reason there. They were also put through on goal, one-on-one with the keeper a lot, which will have, again, given the high XG. So I think our 1.36 actually shows how good our finishing has been this season. I think we've outperformed our expected goals in most of the games. If we keep creating chances.
And that's a good thing, I think. Let's look for some positives.
Yeah.
I think we created chances. Smodish had an excellent one to make it a third. I think that might have made a big difference to the game. But okay, Adam. Well, thanks very much for just sort of sharing your thoughts on today's visit to Brentford, and also look at the stats.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week after the Leicester game.